What you are looking at now is the new loading screen for Nacht Der Untoten. This was introduced to us at the end of issue 3 of the Call of Duty Zombies comic. The Nacht Der Untoten loading screen is a mess in itself that even today still can't be fully interpreted. However, what we can do is look at the new Nacht Der Untoten screen and thanks to new information from the timeline, finally fully understand what is going on here. This is the comic itself right here, and if we look at it and read it from left to right, you'll see there is a man standing in a light, and he's holding a baton in his hand, and this makes us think that he's Stanley Ferguson from the Mob of the Dead intro. And then we see what looks almost like a ritual going on, potentially in the warden's office. It looks as though there's a desk with a candle on it, which is very similar to what we saw in the warden's room, and then there's a bunch of lights coming from it. So maybe this relates to all of the demonic things that are going on in Mob of the Dead. And then we have a bunch of prisoners shuffling through the prison. The shuffle refers to their shackles and their handcuffs and stuff like that, and that's why they're walking in a line. You can even see the prison bars behind them. The next image is a lone person standing in a cell block. This is the cell block we see in Mob of the Dead. One thing some people have pointed out is that it looks like there are also pods on the floor below a few of the cells, which is an interesting thing to note. This is where it starts to get confusing though, because beforehand, you can understand it in the context of Mob of the Dead. But now we have 4 pods, and these pods are very similar to the pods that we saw our characters in. For example, the one that Dempsey was in Der Eisendrache. And the sort of sound is different. Originally that was a zzz sound, but now it's a sound, which, as weird as that sounds, is still interesting. We then have 4 characters teleporting through a portal. We don't know who they are, but we've suspected that they're Primus. And now we have different dates, and the dates are flowing in a different order. Beforehand, they actually flowed backwards in time, but now they're going forwards in time. They go 1914, 1933, 1941. And it's really the latter half of this image, or the lower half of this image, that nobody can understand. It doesn't really make any sense. I guess everything above that kind of makes sense to the context of a prison, but everything below it doesn't. There's no pods in Mob of the Dead. And what are these dates? Well, thanks to the timeline, we actually might be able to crack this mystery and basically understand this loading screen in almost its entirety. So let's start with the dates. What I tried to do was see if I can correspond each specific date with a point on our timeline. So, for example, 19 could correspond with June 4th, 1914. Richtofen is visited by another version of himself. Handing him some blood vials, he explains, "You will need this blood. When the time comes, it will protect you before stepping through the rift." This actually makes a lot of sense in the context of Mob of the Dead. The whole purpose of Richtofen's second Mob of the Dead lab is to meet up there eventually and come back with Primus to collect the blood vials. This is essentially the catalyst. Had this never happened, Richtofen most likely would not have built a base in Mob of the Dead. Richtofen would not have needed to come back. He would not have collected the blood from Primus, and then he probably wouldn't have also gone back and gotten the blood from our characters in Mob of the Dead. And maybe 1914 is also when Richtofen first collected the Mob of the Dead blood, and then came back to give them to Richtofen. All of this could have happened in that year, and this is almost like the catalyst. So maybe that's why that date is there. And then as we continue to move through time, we have December 31st, 1933. Finn, Sal, and Billy lure Al to the roof and kill him. So this is basically where the Mob of the Dead characters begin their torment. Because after they kill Al, what happens is that they end up becoming part of Mob of the Dead. They are imprisoned forever and being tortured in this prison for the sins that they had committed. So this date also makes a lot of sense in the context of Mob of the Dead. And then the final date is the real one that nails it in. July 4th, 1941. Richtofen returns to the lab under Alcatraz, where he meets Victus. Arriving from the empty earth with the Chronorium, upon reading the Chronorium, Richtofen discovers numerous timelines documenting their fate and learns about the blood vials. He would later write on the page, "I know what I must do." Richtofen enters a rift and acquires the blood of Sal and Finn. After delivering the blood to his younger self and recovering the blood vials belonging to Victus, he returns. Victus is placed on ice to be kept safe until they are needed next. This is really making a lot of sense when you consider the image. So right under 1941 is Primus stepping through the portal into Mob of the Dead. That's what that image symbolizes right there. And then the one next to it isn't actually our original character's Ultimus trapped in the pods. What that is actually Victus trapped in the pod. So that's what's going on there. And it also makes sense to go back to 1914, because 1914 was when Richthofen first had received the vials from himself. So in 1941, he goes back in time and travels to 1914. And now, when you consider all of this in the context of Mob of the Dead and the context of the timeline, do this image start to make sense? You can pretty much look at everything and kind of understand where it comes from, why it's here. We have Stanley Ferguson in this image because he was the one that helped Richthofen build the base under Mob of the Dead. The base was also completed in 1941 as well, and this image above the date 1941 is most likely Stanley Ferguson standing in the Mob of the Dead base. Maybe he had a little bit of cell block that he used, and then what you see next to it is actually the pods for Victus, or potentially Victus already on ice. That may be what's going on there, and what you can kind of do is look at those dates like footnotes for important points in the zombie storyline, and you can basically attach each bit of the timeline to those dates, and when you look at all of it in that context, does this image really start to come to life and make a bigger picture for itself? Now, why is this important? Because a lot of this is information we kind of already knew. Well, I believe that the loading screen and its newer version of the loading screen that's revealed in each subsequent comic is important. Basically, in order to understand one image, you also have to understand the other. So, by understanding this newer version of the Nacht Der Untoten loading screen, can we finally understand the original Nacht Der Untoten loading screen, which for most of the zombie storyline has been a complete and utter mystery. So I think that because we have solved this loading screen, we can now go back and look at the Nacht loading screen and try to solve that. And trust me, I have already tried using the same method to solve it of corresponding dates to the timeline. Unfortunately, it doesn't quite work. We're going to have to do a little bit more digging, but I think looking at the change from one loading screen to the next and interpreting one and using those same methods of interpretation in the other could help us figure out this puzzle. That's going to wrap things up for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If so, maybe give it a like, possibly subscribe for more. I'm always diving into the zombie storyline, so if you enjoyed this video, I'm sure you're going to enjoy the next. Have a great day, and bye.